All right, so I'm making this video for you guys today since I'm not in class, and it is on section 3.5. Now, 2 warnings before we get started is number 1, I'm making this video at home, and my dogs are loose in the house, so if you hear any weird noises or if there's any crashing or barking, it's them. If you're lucky, maybe they'll make an appearance before this video's over. And the second warning is I've officially given up on my dock cam because I couldn't get the noise to sound right, so I'm now resting my iPad on top of my dock cam, and it could very easily fall over. So if there's all of a sudden like a crash or something, that's what that is, and I will get it fixed as fast as possible and get back to the notes. So our next section, 3.5, is all about writing equations of lines. We talked about graphing yesterday. We went over how to find slope yesterday and some things with parallel and perpendicular. And now we're going to get to the final pieces of all those things that you need to know to write equations of lines. When you think about writing equations of lines, hopefully you're thinking about this format right here. Most of your answers should be in y equals mx plus b. Pretty much all the time it should be in that format unless there's some other instruction. And there's 3 different scenarios that you're going to have to deal with. One is if you're given a slope and a y-intercept. That is the easiest case. If you're given the slope and given the y-intercept, it's really easy to just plug those numbers right in and be done with it. The second scenario, getting a little bit harder, is if you're given a slope and a point, and you need to write the equation of the line. If that's the case, you have 2 choices. You can either use point-slope form, which some people just prefer, or you can use y equals mx plus b. And I'll go over examples of both of those. So if you like one versus the other, I'll have that work for you. The last one, and which is the hardest one just because it has the most steps to it, is when you're given 2 points. How can you write the equation of a line if all you're given is 2 points? Again, we need to work toward getting that slope and y-intercept. So you're going to use the slope formula to find m, and then use another equation to go back and find your b value. If this all sounds like a bunch of nonsense right now, hopefully it makes more sense when we get to it. So the first example, hopefully is one of our easier ones, is writing the equation of a line if you're given a slope and a y-intercept. In this case, it's given to us from our graph to the right here. So if you look at that, I need to figure out what is my m, what is my b. Your b should be very easy to find. If I look at my picture, I can see it crosses the y-axis at 1. So my b value is 1. If I try to find my slope, I need to find just 2 points that cross really nicely on the lines so that I can count how much am I going up or down, how much am I going left or right. I see this point here and this point here. If I try to figure out my slope from there, I'm going to count. Remember, it's rise over run, so I'm going to go up and down first. To get from this point to this point, I need to go down 3 over 2. So my slope is negative 3 over 2. And that's really the hardest part about this, is finding those 2 things, because once I have them, I just plug them right in. So negative 3 halves x plus 1. Most of the time, you won't even need to get it from a graph. It will be given right to you. The next situation, the next most difficult one, is when you're given the slope and a point. Again, I want to get my answer in the form of y equals mx plus b. If I have a slope, I can put it right in. So in this case, negative 3. But I don't know my y-intercept, so I have to figure that out. I can't just pick a point here. I can't just make it up. I don't have a picture, so I have to solve for it. And this is where you have 2 different choices. We have our point slope lovers. You'll be on this side. We have our y equals mx plus b lovers. You'll be on this side, and you'll find we'll get the same answer either way. So the first thing we need to do is plug in our numbers. Notice in our point slope formula, you have a y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We need to plug in a y value, an m value, and an x value. Notice that the y and the x are going to stay in the equation. The y1 and the x1 are going to leave, as well as the m. We're going to plug in numbers or solve for those. Hopefully you can remember that you're plugging into the x1 and the y1, and a way to help you is to think, well, there's a regular y and a regular x in my equation, not a y1 and an x1. So those are the ones I'm going to sub in for. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these numbers in here. My y value is 4. My slope is negative 3. And my x1 value is 5. So if I fill in my formula, I have y minus 4 equals negative 3 times x minus 5. All I have left to do now is solve and get y by itself, and my work is finished. So I'm going to distribute this side first. So y minus 4 is going to stay the same, equals negative 3x plus 15. And the last thing I need to do then is add 4 to both sides. So y equals negative 3x plus 19. So we found out that our y-intercept is 19. Now, if you're a slope-intercept lover and you like to use this equation, again, we're going to sub in for m, x, and y, and we're going to solve for b. So I'm going to put in my y value is 4, my m is negative 3, my x is 5, and then I have to tack on that plus b, keeping in mind this is what I'm solving for. If I simplify from here, I have 4 equals negative 15 plus b. And my answer, if I add 15 to both sides, ends up being 19 equals b. Now notice this method, if you use this formula, you just have one extra step. Here, when I subbed everything in and simplified, it got me to my final answer. Y and x were in there. Now I just solve for the number or the value of b, so I need to plug it back in. My answer is y equals negative 3x, because that was my slope, plus 19. And again, we got the same answer either way. So it's completely up to you. I don't care which way you choose, but pick one and just stick with that one. All right, our last way of writing the equation of a line is when you're given 2 points. And this is the one that has the most work. If at any point you forget what you're supposed to do, this chart is up here to help you. So for us to find the equation given 2 points, it's just like this last one, except we aren't even given a slope. Up here we were told the slope. Here we need to find it ourselves. So let's start out by doing that first. You always need a slope, so we need to be able to find that. So I'm going to take 10 minus a negative 2, 2 minus 5. I get 12 over negative 3, which is negative 4. So this is my m value that I'm going to use. When it comes to our equations, we sub in an m, we sub in an x, and we sub in a y. And a lot of people ask, well, how do I know which to use? It's completely up to you. Maybe you like the smaller numbers. Maybe you like the positive numbers. We're going to get the same answer either way if we do it correctly. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick these ones because they're positive. So my x is 2, my y is 10, my m is negative 4. And now I'm back to that same procedure that I did up here. I just have to pick whichever method I choose. So I'll do both ways again. If I choose to do point slope form, I'm going to have y minus 10 equals negative 4 times x minus 2. If I choose to do y equals mx plus b or slope intercept form, I'm going to have 10 equals negative 4 times 2 plus b. Again, if I solve these, I should end up with the same answer. So here I get y minus 10 equals negative 4x plus 8. If I just add that 10 to the other side because I want y by itself, I get negative 4x plus 18. If I solve my y equals mx plus b way, I get 10 equals negative 8 plus b. Again, my goal is to figure out what is this b value. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And 18 equals b. You always have to take that last step. If you stop here, you're going to lose credit just for not writing and not giving the final answer of the equation of that line. So I would have y equals negative 4x, because that's my slope, plus 18. And again, either way, we get that same answer. Jetson, stop it, buddy.